Hey everyone, welcome to Soulfish. I am really glad you're here. If you're new to the channel, I hope that the messages here resonate for you, that what you might hear helps you on your path, and please subscribe and like, comment. We're growing this community. We're learning together. Real dialogue, real spiritual teachings going on here. Okay, so I was listening to this audio on YouTube, and it goes back from an Abraham Hicks recording from 2009, or at least that's when it was posted. And I put the link in the description box below, but it was an interesting question, and it was their response to where did humans come from? I'm going to turn this conversation a little bit because as I was listening to that dialogue and the channeling going on there, I found, for me, it twisted into more of an understanding of the New Age movement and some of the flaws in that teaching. The one-dimensional nature, I guess, of that teaching, the outward nature of the teaching, the mind nature of this teaching. So let me explain what I mean. And this is what I'm sharing with you is practical spirituality. This is what we've been shown in all sorts of dogmas, is a twisting of the truth to form an agenda. But the understanding that truth is truth and that what we're all after as seekers is truth, not an agenda. So it was interesting because I understand that this discussion was geared in a different direction, but for me it was very interesting because it really put the emphasis on your mind, on thought form. And so I thought, wow, that's a bit strange. Here's why. The concept here, as explained by Abraham Hicks, was that, thought form, that human race was a convention of thought form, basically, of a higher power. And thought form equals manifestation. And if enough people here are perceiving at the same time, then manifestation occurs. So that's an energy, right? So we talk about that. So what's not discussed in this portion is the why of that. The why of that is because the thought form leads to a feeling. And if you learn to pray the feeling, the art of prayer, then manifestation can occur. But the flaw in this teaching is that it's from thought. It's the idea that your mind, that your thought has that kind of power. So your thought leads to something else, right? So, for example, thought is part of intention. Think about that for a minute. It's a product. It's a product of your environment. It's a product of you. It's a product of your capability to process the information that you're exposed to. So one person has a lot more processing power. We would call them much smarter than the other person who has low processing power. Right? So think about that. You're dependent. Everything we're being taught, shown right now, is that thought equals consciousness, and that's a false premise. It's a false premise designed to disconnect you from source and spirit. That's its ultimate evil purpose, if you want to call it that. It's a true intention. All of these buckets lead to the same destination, which is to try to disconnect you. My attempt, my mission is to say, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, you were called here. You're being activated. You were awakened so that you could develop and ascend this place, not be trapped in a reincarnation wheel of this place. You were brought here because you are its solution. You were part of the solution. You are supposed to, will help to bring this into a new type of reality, a new type of understanding, a new awareness. You are part of that process. As you grow, you bring everyone along. I read an article a long time ago, and they talked about how there was this really tough crossword puzzle. And everyone was having problems solving it. It was a global thing, however that crossword puzzle solving goes. And anyway, somebody in England finally solved it. And subsequently, right after that occurred, almost everyone everywhere else solved it. So it was like once the key was learned, it went into the collective, right? And then those people so hyper-focused on that could almost bring down that solution, were told that solution through spirit. Think about that. That's pretty cool. So let me bring it back. The flaw in this is that your mind equals consciousness. So that would mean that if you're smarter, you would have more under this flawed hypothesis. I'm saying that if you were smarter, you would have more consciousness. If you were stupider, you would have less consciousness, because your mind equals your consciousness. If your mind generates everything, which is the auspice of this, that doesn't feel right inside me. Does that feel right inside you? Think about this. This is temporary stuff. It's like our discussion of law of attraction, where you're hyper-focused on one of, let's say, 7 hermetic principles in terms of how this place actually works. And then you have a temporary result, but it's never sustainable. And usually it's a balanced result. So all of a sudden you employ what I'm going to call is a form of magic, because you're changing consciousness, energy in a space. It's for a limited amount of time. So you do that, right? And something good, whatever you were trying to manifest, occurs, let's say. But because it's not sustainable, organic, because it's not in alignment with your beingness, then there's a equal and opposite reaction to that follows right after you're out of that space. Highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. We're taught this. We're taught this in practice in terms of how we go about things. But this kind of energy is used all the time. This is why you see so much geared at kind of changing our vibe at a mass level. This whole concept that if thought form equals manifestation, that if we can help show you a picture, help create an energy, a vibe, a kind of like a feeling in that crowd, right? It's usually at an instance too, right? But there's a build up, football game, concert, a TV program, whatever, right? So it's a thought over beingness is what we're taught. In other words, that our thoughts, instead of our beingness generating the thoughts. In other words, if I were vibing, let's say on a scale of 1 to 5 positively, 5 being awesomeness, like I feel awesome, I can bend space and time. And then on the converse, it's negative 5, let's say 0 being neutral. So if I were a 5, what kind of thoughts, what kind of energy am I playing at? What am I thinking about? How am I living, right? Like all of those things. If I'm a 10, if I'm a 5, which feels like a 10, right? But I'm saying, if I'm a 5, right? If I'm at my max, I'm at my max, what would that feel like? How would I be for my beingness to be there? I'm suggesting to you that I would never be able to have a thought that was lower than that space. I would never have a feeling lower than that space. I would be in balance between my thinking and my feeling side. So think about when we talk about every day on our daily energy readings, setting in the intention. The intention is the catalyst, not thought. Thought is part of an intention. You have to have a thought to lead yourself to an intention, but you don't have an intention to lead yourself to a thought. So what's been done is, in this teaching, the twisting, is that if you think of things in terms of this chart shows here, what we've been staring at, this thought that will is at the top. Your will is a creation of intention. Your will is what holds things together. So the intention is the harmony reached between your thinking and your feeling sides. An intention is the catalyst, not thought. But your will holds it together. That is the key. This is the key to your spiritual development right here. All the great wisdom teachings in some way simplify it down to this in their way, in their understanding, in the way they describe things. The people who were left there to leave us the breadcrumbs, to find truth. So what's occurred now is, in the teachings as I see it, is that thought equals consciousness, which is a false teaching, it's a twisting. You can see where the triangle now has shifted and will has become on the bottom right and feeling on the bottom left. And now thinking is at the pinnacle. In other words, our thoughts are what lead us to, are supposed to overcome our feelings. That's why, that's what we're taught, right? Remember, boys don't cry. Remember that we suppress these feelings. You're too emotional. Sorry, this isn't personal. This is business, right? You understand where I'm coming from. So this thinking side has logic. Your Luciferian logic, right? I'm just playing, not really. So I'm this thought equals consciousness is ultimately a control system. And it keeps you in a pain body. Now, how does this, when you say, we need to have positive, mantras. We need to have positive, thoughts. I don't want to spend my time thinking about negative stuff. I totally get you. I understand. But what I'm suggesting to you is, if you worked on your beingness, if all of this energy that we put on the outside, so think about that. This thought that if our thought form somehow controls us, right? Like my thought, I must do this, right? My thought is going to lead me down the road somewhere. The problem is your thoughts, your mind is a vehicle, is a puppet of the times. It's affected by your emotions. It's affected by energy. It's affected by the subconscious. It is a product of the matter world. It is the tool you need, the screwdriver, the processor, to help you understand the information, the limited amount. We see less than 99%. Think about that. 1% or less. We see that amount in our visual capabilities. And yet everyone says, oh, that can't be. I don't see that. And there's 99% more stuff you're not seeing. You can't see. You're not made to see it. You couldn't process it. You're not made to be able to process that kind of data. And yet we're not going to believe it, right? And yet what we're suggesting and what we're seeing more and more is the activation awareness of energy sensitives, of empaths, of intuitives, of mediums, of psychics, of all of this extra sensory perception gifts, what we call gifts. What if we're unlocking things? As our consciousness improves, we unlock things. And these are gifts given out of grace. But then we grow these gifts. As our consciousness improves, our powers increase. Think about that. This has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And here we are as a people coming together at this time and all of us seemingly in this moment, again, this energy, this awakening, this ascension type energy of get your shit together, man. Like look at this. What's going on? How are you living this? Why does, so many of us see what's going on and see how it's broken, see how it doesn't make sense. What we're taught now, the stories don't add up anymore. So because your energy is always being directed outward, this practice is designed to keep you in guilt. So think about that. To simplify, it's because you can never keep the mind in a high place. It exists only in the matter world, and it's influenced by everything we've already talked about, your feeling side, your subconscious, all the stuff. Your feeling side is equal power, which is why you're always in conflict. We're taught to suppress the feeling side. Think about that. Instead of transmuting it with your thinking side, using both together, why weren't we taught that? Because if we were taught that, then that would be a whole picture, which means that you would be more in alignment with your true self, with what you truly are. And guess what? That would be hard to contain, control, to manipulate, right? Because it's really about power over. And what we're about, what this movement is about, what spiritual practice is about, is empowerment. It's about self-empowerment. Because you have to seek in order for the exit door to find you. You have to seek hard enough and long enough and work on yourself. It's all about you, not what's outside. So I want you to think about this, that we're in this constant state of flux, right? Because we're at war inside. We have this dis-ease going on. So what we manifest naturally, organically, electromagnetically, what we call to us is what and where we're vibing. So do your thoughts lead to what you're vibing? Is that a tool? Yes. Is it manipulated? Yes. So I'm not suggesting that your thoughts can't lead to a lower vibe. That's of course. If you were vibing at a 3, what would you be thinking about? How would you be feeling? What are you doing? If a certain response, anger, depression, whatever, isn't on your multiple choice test, how can you pick it? But if you're already susceptible, if you're already vibing at a lower level, then of course a lower end thought could manifest and help to either keep you in that space or drive you lower, right? But how could that thought manifest in a place that it doesn't belong, can't live in electromagnetically? Think about that. Your thoughts are like the sea with waves and tides. What's it influenced by? It's influenced by the moon. That's your feeling side, your emotions. We're taught, hey, you're the sea, right? And suppress the moon. How can the sea suppress the moon? So let's tidy this thing up, right? So intention is the catalyst, not thought. Let's talk about a true teaching here. So your job, what your objective here is to transmute the light and the dark, to transmute your thinking and your feeling side, to when the 1 becomes 2 and the 2 becomes 1. Think about that. When you are able to combine these two halves of yourself is when you become whole. When you become whole is the connection. That's when the plug goes into the receptacle fully and you are connected in. And that's what your true ability, purpose, capability, what you're supposed to be able to do would make this life make a lot more sense. And that's why I'm here with you. That's what I want to be able to help you to understand and do, which is a practical approach to your spirituality based on teachings that are thousands of years old and that I want to share with you so that you have a chance to see things from a different way, to see things and experience life in a different place, because you have that kind of power. And not because you're a god, and not because somebody, is hyping you up in the moment and telling, and getting you vibed up in this thought equals consciousness kind of BS. The politics of the moment, all of these things distract from who and what your abilities and are, what you are, and your ability to connect with what is so much bigger than everything here, which shares with you and shows you what needs to happen for you and helps you to live in a proper way. And the funny thing is that as you improve yourself, if the focus of all this energy and judgment and this, like I said, keeping us in this state of flux, in this state of conflict, right? At war inside each other. If we're at war inside ourselves, then what do you think we're manifesting on the outside? So this is your objective, is to bring your two sides together. And these are teachings that can help you do that. I hope this is helpful to you. And until next time, much love.